Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video we will be talking about when to expect your first snowfall this year. So this will be similar, at least the first part of the video, to my when to expect your first frost video, as in I will be basing this off of my fall outlook, which was based off of several different criteria and things, as this isn't going to be more about the winter outlook but the fall outlook, as most people see their first snowfall, excluding the deep south, when it is still meteorological autumn. So first off, I want to take a look at my precipitation graphic. So this is what I think this fall will look like in terms of precipitation. Where you have the green, I think it will be above average precipitation, and where you have the browns and the darker browns, you'll have below average precipitation. So notice that the only area that I do believe will see above average precipitation is, at least other than the southeast, is the northwestern United States, as the La Nina flow that will probably set up into the fall. How much of that will set up will depend on how strong the actual La Nina itself is. But notice I increased the colors there to green, as I do believe it will be quite wet there. But notice the southeast. The main reason for this activity is going to be due with tropical activity, so tropical storms. That's not really going to factor into snow, as there's only been a few times, and I was late in the fall and further up northeast, where the most recent one, Superstorm Sandy, that turned into a snowstorm as it hit the northeast. Notice that a good portion of the central, northern, and western United States are drier, and that is because I believe that there just will be a drier pattern. Usually during these falls that have historically lined up with this one, there's been drier predictions, and also I base that off of several forecasting bureaus like the Weather Channel, AccuWeather, Farmer's Almanac, and NOAA, and they all are leaning towards dryness. Now, whether or not that's going to be accurate, we will see, but this is a speculation video, so the whole accuracy in this is going to be limited. It's more for the fun of it. Now, why does this matter for the snowfall? Well, if you have above average precipitation or below average precipitation, that could mean a few different things, right? If you have below average precipitation, almost none, then you won't have enough precipitation for the snowfall. But at the same time, if you have really a lot of precipitation, especially in the fall time, it's often indicative of a lot of moisture from the south and thunderstorms, so that doesn't necessarily help the first snow basis either, but it is an important tool, and we'll keep this in the back of our minds as we go forward here. This is my temperature outlook for the fall, all 3 months. The precipitation was for all 3 months combined, and this is why I want to talk about this, because it is nuanced in the sense that just by looking at this, you won't be able to tell my full forecast. And the reason I say that is I believe that the western and southern and eastern, and really the central United States, the whole United States, I should specify, for the first 2 months, I think will be warm. There will be some cool shots of air that come through during those times, which could provide a chance for snow across the far northern areas, but I don't think it will outside of those extreme northern areas. Now, by the time we get to, you may be wondering why is there a light blue color? And that is because by the time we get to November, I believe that the pattern will change, and what we will see is a sharp transition to a much colder November, and that is where a lot of areas will see their first snow. So it's a similar thing as with that first frost forecast, if the folks that are watching this video watch that one, where you can be seeing states like Iowa, Illinois, areas in Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, seeing their first snowfall just days ahead or even on the same day as areas many states south, like Kentucky, Tennessee, and Arkansas, because of the fact that the first part of fall, I think, will hold off, and many areas will be late. Many northern areas will be late to seeing their first snowfall. And then once it finally comes in November, the cold air spills down south. I think those areas will see their first snowfall, the ones that haven't, and then that snow will actually be ahead of time for the southern areas. And that is what's reflected in this temperature outlook. First 2 months will be warm, with a little bit of cool air towards maybe the north, and then November will be very cold with cold shots. So as an average look for this map, because of how cold November I think will be, I still think that the overall average will be slightly cooler across the Midwest. So if I were to show you September, October, it would be orange. November, dark blue. You take the average of that, you get something like this. And I do believe that the cold air will have a hard time making it across these areas that are in this dark red and bright red. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's going to be more expansive, the cold air, or maybe it will be more limited, and this graphic is too cold bias. That is part of forecasting. We don't know until it happens. This is my fall weather highlight. So this is kind of what I divide into into different regions, right? And this could give us a good look into when to expect your first snowfall, because, well, obviously if you're warm and dry, you won't really be seeing your first snowfall necessarily earlier. but again, there are nuances to this. So let's start off across the northwest. Well, I do believe the most predominant feature of the fall will be just wetness. So obviously across the mountains, certain areas that don't necessarily need a massive cold shot of air to produce snowfall, you guys will probably be seeing, and this includes the Cascades, they're not highlighted here, but either the Bitterroots, even to the Glacier Park in Montana, Yellowstone, these areas, even the Wasatch, will probably see mountain snow regardless if it's warm or cool because of the amount of precipitation, and just you could just have 1 or 2 nights that are cooler out of the whole fall, and that produces your mountain snow. I think the mountain snow will come in on average, if not above average. Now, if you move towards the Montana, Wyoming, northern South Dakota, and North Dakota area, I do believe that with one of these cool shots that comes in from September and October, combined with all the extremely warm air to the south that is very almost summer-like, you will probably see a snowstorm occurring somewhere there. Not necessarily, a snowy fall, just an early snow, and not just like a few inches, potentially something that brings even up to several feet. Something like we saw in 2013, or even what we saw in 2020 in early September. If you recall, there was that massive winter storm across the west that brought really heavy snow really early on across Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, those states. So early snow, but I do believe it will be limited towards the north. Further east, we have Minnesota, Wisconsin. These areas I have highlighted as cold, and this is where some of that cold air earlier on in the season, September, October, might actually be more prominent, and in November will also be very cold. So I do believe that those areas will be best marked as cold. Notice further south, we have a giant area of warm and dry, and the reason I believe that is because, again, I think September and October will be dry. Dry and very warm. And that will be the predominant thing when people look back and think about fall 2025. They'll be like, wow, it was a very warm and dry fall. There was a cold ending to it, and that would be November. So that doesn't account for that here, right? The warm and dry, it doesn't really show that in November because I don't think it will be the main highlight. Heat across the southwest, I think that will be the main thing. Probably, and also dryness across the southwest. So any mountain snow there will struggle developing as it's going to be hot and wet, hot and dry. While the northwest, you may be warmer, but you also will be wetter. So I think that's why there's that difference where mountain snow can occur on time, if not even above schedule, earlier than normal across the northwest. Moving on to the south, we have active tropics. I believe that the tropics will be active either in the form of moisture, but more probably concerningly in the form of tropical systems, hurricanes, and what's not. Hopefully I'm wrong about this, but it doesn't look good. And notice that it's all in red here, all highlighted areas that, could get hit by this. Obviously, this could extend into the northeast, but I think that threat diminishes significantly as you go further north. Storminess in between because of the strong high pressure that probably will be dominating the central United States, and storminess in between that kind of tropical belt and that warm belt, and there could be some storms across the deep south here, mid-south, that develop over and over again, and warm across the eastern United States. So now with all of this taken into perspective, right, all of these different nuances of September, October being warm, November being cold, I want to begin to show you my first snowfall outlook prediction. This is the map that I will be basing it off of. Sorry about that. This is the map I'll be basing it off of, the average date of first measurable snow. This is the Weather Channel's graphic, and you can see that they have several areas, highlighted in September, October, November, December. This is the average date. So I decided, if it's going to be warm in one area, I'm going to delay it a little bit. If it's going to be cold, I'm going to speed things up. And the difference that I did in my map was I divided it into kind of half months for some of them. So notice that for September, I do believe that the main areas that just get snow in September will be the mountainous areas, and not all of them are highlighted here because of the crazy amount of detail I'd have to put in, and I just don't really have the map making graphics for that. So anywhere in the higher elevated areas where you normally see snow in September, you probably this year will, excluding the southwest. I think you might be actually delayed. Now, the next area I have from October 1st to the 15th, so the first half of October, maybe even late September, I do believe that there will be a large area of concern for, again, that early snow, a potential major system, and I believe that will drop a lot of first snow for these areas. Now, if you compare this back to the graphic that we had with the Weather Channel had, October was more expansive in general, but not necessarily the first half. I think the first half will be above average. It will be a quick start to the year in terms of who will see their first snowfall for the northern United States. But then the second half of October won't be the same, and not many new areas will get snow in that second half of October. And that is because, again, outside of that early first system, I think October will return, that pattern will return back to its warm and humid and hot air mass that is going to be across much of the United States. And do note that the areas, a little bit into South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, UP, potentially across the 15th through the 30th of October, getting their snowfall, the Wasatch, different mountain ranges, and portions across the Northeast here, little pockets, though again, a lot less than normal. Now, where we start getting things to right around average, so again, we went from a quick start to below average, a slow start, October 15th to 30th, to now catching up to average in terms of where these areas should be seeing their first snow for the year, is November 1st through the 15th. And the reason for that is because I believe that around this time frame, the pattern will break from a warmer pattern to a cold one. So many areas will probably see their first snowfall within a matter of a week or two during that November time frame. And then even not even just catching up to where the normal is for the first snow of the year, I think we'll zoom ahead of that and introduce snow into the second half of November earlier, way earlier than normally across Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, the Mid-Atlantic, into portions of the West. Again, notice that across the West, I still kept things later. So the 1st through the 15th, 15th through the 30th, 1st through the 15th, that is a slower than normal progression. These colors here are a quicker than normal progression. And, some of these areas that are highlighted in the December 1st through the 15th don't see snow till January in more average years, but I don't believe that will be the case. I think the South, the Mid-South, will actually see snow a lot earlier this year, maybe even the Northeast as well. But as you go towards kind of this awkward middle portion of this country, I call it awkward because you'll be stuck between most likely a early start and a early finish, but you will be in a slow early first snowfall, I think. Now, not for long, right? By November, I think things will start heating up in terms of the winter aspect. But yeah, I think like Des Moines, Chicago, Detroit, you guys will probably be seeing your snow somewhere around average, maybe a little later. But cities like Minneapolis, Green Bay, Sioux City, so the tier of cities further north, you probably will be seeing your snowfall later than normal. And then, again, further south, you will be seeing it definitely quicker than normal. And I believe that once this cold air starts, it will really stick around for a while, and it will drive very far to the south. So I would not be surprised to see even a snowstorm this year. So not in January or February, where usually we see cold southern snowstorms in winters that they do happen. I think that, Louisiana, Texas, they could even see snow this year, meaning 2025 before we get into January or February. And again, the Southwest, I think you guys will be slow with seeing the snowfall, and you won't see a rapid increase during November, December, because you will probably be warm throughout most of winter there. All right, that is basically it. I just wanted to give you my kind of perspective on things. Hopefully you enjoyed, hopefully you understood what I was trying to say, and I'll catch you on the next episode. See ya. Bye.